So let's get right into it. This video is intended for non-EU students or non-EU professionals who may want to build and keep a career in Europe. Now, why that group in particular is in case you have not already secured your permanent residency and or citizenship, your stay in Europe is dependent on sponsorship-based employability and the ability to convince an employer who's legally allowed to sponsor you uh, to stay in his or her company till you're eligible legally yourself to apply for the permanent residency. Now, on their part, this costs time, money, and resources. So there's only a finite pool of employers who would be willing to partake this process in Europe, and a even more finite pool who are legally allowed to do so. Thus, your ability to stay is not necessarily based on your university track record or your past job track record. It is based on how employable you're perceived to be, how much risk an employer associates with you, and whether they see value in keeping you long term. Now, who am I? I'm currently employed as a global sales manager in high tech B2B sales. Things are going good, but back when I was in the process of securing my whole permanent visa and uh, that stuff, yeah, things were tough. I did not speak the local language fluently, and I required a employer sponsorship to be able to legally stay and work till I was eligible for my PR. Now, at that period in my life, I faced some structural constraints. Fewer roles were available because, yeah, half or more, by the way, were cut off due to the sponsorship requirement. Um, Lacking fluency in the local language, that's still a thing. However, if you're good enough at your job and you don't have the PR/citizenship constraint, it's actually quite decent. And of course, all of that back then led to higher scrutiny during interviews and lower margin for error compared to local candidates. So, yes, if you don't get it right, there are significant consequences. Of course, if you want to move back to your home country, then this video is not for you. I made this video because I think I figured out how employers decide how to hire and sponsor people, and more importantly, how to influence that outcome. And why is that? Well, I work in sales. I'm pretty good, and sales is all about persuasion, understanding the other person's psychology, and being able to influence whatever close you're trying to get, whether it's a job interview or a sales call. Now, interestingly enough, I did run into some Reddit threads which also talks about this issue because I was I was thinking to myself, others must have faced this issue as well. This one, warning to fellow non-EU students, being able to stay here after studies is the exception, not the rule. And this is probably potentially highly qualified people because we're talking about university uh, goers, bachelor's, master's. I had my bachelor and master's degrees, and I still face the same constraints. There's this American individual who's had a master's degree and internships in Europe and still has to go home because yeah, he couldn't find a job apparently. Um, but yeah, for the purpose of this video, what I will give is that there's three essential things that if you as a non-EU graduate or expat are facing this issue that you can focus on. The first is, of course, how to leverage your university degree to the maximum effect. So, for instance, if let's say probably the worst degree you can have in order to get employment, not even sponsorship-based employment, but employment anywhere, is a liberal arts degree. However, when paired with the right CV structure and narrative positioning, which we will get into, it can still lead to roles where employer sponsorship is available. Of course, the pool of jobs you would be potentially be applying for and eligible for would be significantly limited. So you must get the interviewing part correctly. So that said, to sum it up, your university degree is important, but it does not have to be a limiting factor. What matters is how that degree is positioned. So, your CV and cover letter primarily serves to reflect a signal of how you should be interpreted, not necessarily a task by task match put on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, or Indeed. So it's essentially a translation layer between your background, exactly your background, and what the employer is looking for. You must match it case by case. This is where sales and persuasion comes in. Um, think of it as different stage gates. Your university degree and CV and narrative positioning. Let's say you submit it, you get an interview. That's one stage gate. Then the second stage gate comes in the interviewing frame and signal, but we'll get to that in a second. To close off the CV and cover letter part, job requirements usually reflect a broader employee archetype, so not necessarily a rigid checklist. Of course, there's certain essentials, but it's not as rigid as you might expect. So it's an essential, especially in your position, to have a strong narrative positioning which reframes your experience to match the underlying intent of the role. So we move over to the interviewing part, and what's really important to remember is here interviewers are trying to assess how you think, structure answers, and handle pressure, most importantly. This is a live environment where signals are interpreted under artificially created uncertainty. So it's not a neutral assessment of skill. Your framing, how you present yourself, significantly presents to them how reliable or risky you are. Um, clarity, composure, consistency, this, and the narrative framing. So what sort of hobbies do you like? Why do you do what you do outside of work? Who you are? These the interview viewer doesn't really care about those things. Why they ask is they're trying to paint these things of you and who you would be at the workplace, and you can only get that by having a 360 view on who the person is via these questions. To close off the video, if you find yourself in such a situation and want to perhaps some material or even one-on-one consultations from someone who's been through it, experienced it firsthand, and got off pretty well, feel free to contact me. Do put a comment on the YouTube video and tell me DM or something, and I can reach out to you. And that's it. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next.